She took the night shift at the gas station, unaware that the quiet customer who came in every Tuesday at 2 a.m. buying nothing but a gallon of milk was actually Daniel Park, the tech billionaire whose face graced magazine covers and whose company had just revolutionized artificial intelligence. While Maya Rodriguez counted her tips and worried about making rent, Daniel found himself looking forward to those brief moments of genuine human connection more than any board meeting or investor call. He had everything money could buy, but he couldn't buy what she gave him without even knowing it. The feeling of being seen as just a regular person. What started as a simple transaction at a rundown gas station in Phoenix would become a love story that proved sometimes the most extraordinary. Connections happen in the most ordinary places. But first, both of them would have to overcome the walls that different worlds can build between two hearts. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights of Quick Stop Gas hummed overhead as Maya Rodriguez stocked energy drinks for the third time that night. At 2:47 a.m., Phoenix was mostly asleep, leaving her alone with the occasional trucker, party-goer, or insomniac needing late-night essentials. Maya had been working the graveyard shift for 8 months now, ever since her mom's medical bills started piling up and her day job at the veterinary clinic wasn't enough anymore. At 26, she'd thought she'd have more figured out by now, but life had other plans. The chemotherapy treatments were working, but they were draining both her mother's strength and Maya's savings. She glanced at the security monitor showing the empty parking lot, then back at her textbook spread behind the counter. Pre-veterinary courses, her dream of becoming a full veterinarian, put on hold, but not abandoned. She studied between customers, determined to build something better for both her and her mom. The electronic chime announced another customer. Maya looked up to see a man in his early 30s walking toward the dairy section. Tall, lean, wearing a simple gray hoodie and jeans that had seen better days. His dark hair was messy, like he'd been running his hands through it, and there was something tired about his eyes. He was a regular, came in every Tuesday around this time. Always bought the same thing. 1 gallon of whole milk. Never anything else. Never made small talk. Just paid in cash and left. Maya had started calling him Milk Guy in her head. Daniel Park moved through the familiar routine, grateful for the anonymity this place provided. After 16-hour days of board meetings, investor calls, and media interviews about DataVault's latest AI breakthrough, this rundown gas station felt like sanctuary. Here, nobody knew his face from Forbes covers or recognized his voice from tech podcasts. Here, he could just be another tired guy buying milk. Tonight felt different, though. The stress of the upcoming product launch, the pressure from investors, the constant scrutiny, it was all weighing heavier than usual. His hands trembled slightly as he grabbed the milk carton. Rough night? Maya asked as he approached the counter, surprising herself. She usually didn't engage with customers beyond the basics, but something about his demeanor reminded her of her own exhaustion. Daniel paused, seeming startled that someone had actually spoken to him like a person rather than just processing his transaction. "You could say that," he replied, his voice rough with exhaustion. "Work's been intense." Maya nodded sympathetically as she scanned the milk. "Tell me about it." "I'm pulling double shifts just to keep up." She hesitated, then added, "Coffee's fresh if you need some caffeine for the road." The simple kindness in her offer caught Daniel off guard. When was the last time someone had offered him something without wanting anything in return? Without knowing his net worth or hoping for an investment opportunity? "Thanks, but I should probably try to sleep at some point," he said, finding himself actually considering staying longer just to talk to someone real. "Good luck with that," Maya said with a small laugh that made her whole face light up. "That's $3.47. As Daniel reached for his wallet, fatigue made him clumsy. It slipped from his tired fingers, spilling its contents across the floor. Credit cards, business cards, and cash scattered everywhere, including his platinum corporate Amex and several business cards with CEO Datavault Technologies printed in clean Helvetica. "Shit, sorry," he muttered, immediately dropping to gather everything up. His heart racing. Maya came around the counter to help without hesitation, grabbing a few cards that had slid under the chip rack. In the dim lighting and her focus on just being helpful, she handed them back without really looking at them. "Thanks," Daniel said, shoving everything back quickly, certain she must have seen something. "No problem, we've all been there." Maya smiled, a genuine, warm smile that made something in Daniel's chest tighten. "See you next week, Milk Guy." Daniel stopped halfway to the door. "Milk Guy?" Maya blushed. "Sorry, I don't know your name." "So I just ... you know, you always buy milk." For the first time in months, Daniel smiled, really smiled. Not the practice smile he wore for cameras or board meetings, but something genuine. "It's Daniel, Maya," she replied. "Nice to officially meet you, Daniel." As he drove home to his penthouse apartment overlooking Camelback Mountain, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about that smile, about the way she'd helped without hesitation, about how normal she'd made him feel. For 20 minutes, he hadn't been the CEO of a billion-dollar company. He'd just been Daniel, talking to Maya about coffee and rough nights. Maya, meanwhile, found herself hoping Tuesday would come around quickly. There had been something different about tonight, something real in the brief connection they'd shared. Neither of them knew that this simple exchange would change everything. The following Tuesday, Daniel found himself arriving at Quick Stop 15 minutes early. He sat in his car, a modest Honda Civic. He kept specifically for these late-night trips, watching through the window as Maya organized inventory behind the counter. She moved with quiet efficiency, occasionally pushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear as she concentrated. When he finally walked in, her face brightened immediately. "Hey Daniel, right on time." She gestured toward the coffee machine. "I made a fresh pot about an hour ago, if you change your mind." "Actually," Daniel said, surprising himself, "that sounds good tonight." As Maya poured him a cup, she noticed the dark circles under his eyes had deepened. Another rough week. Daniel accepted the coffee gratefully. Product launch coming up. Lots of pressure. It wasn't a lie. Datavo's new AI platform was set to revolutionize personal data security, and the tech world was watching. What he didn't mention was that he was the one everyone was watching. "What kind of work do you do?" Maya asked, genuinely curious as she rang up his milk and coffee. Daniel hesitated. "Tech stuff, software development." Also not a lie, just ... Incomplete. "That's cool. I bet you're good at it." She handed him his change. "I'm trying to get back into school myself." "Pre-veterinary program. Really? That's amazing." Daniel's interest was genuine. "What made you want to become a vet?" Maya's expression softened. "I've always loved animals. Started working at Dr. Martinez's clinic when I was 16, just cleaning kennels and stuff. But I love watching him work, seeing how he helps families when their pets are sick." She paused. "Sounds silly, but I like being part of something that matters, you know?" Daniel felt something twist in his chest. When was the last time he'd thought about his work in those terms? Datavault mattered. It protected people's privacy, democratized data security. But somewhere between board meetings and profit margins, he'd lost sight of the human element. "It doesn't sound silly at all," he said quietly. "It sounds like exactly what the world needs more of." Their eyes met across the counter, and for a moment, the fluorescent-lit gas station felt like the most important place in the world. Over the next month, Tuesday nights became the highlight of both their weeks. Daniel started staying longer, sometimes sitting at the small table near the window while Maya worked. They talked about everything: her studies, her mother's recovery progress, his stressful tech job, their shared love of old movies. Maya learned that Daniel was brilliant, but humble, that he had strong opinions about ethical technology use, and that he always left exact change plus a $5 tip he thought she didn't notice. Daniel discovered that Maya was studying for her MCATs while working 2 jobs, that she made her mother homemade soup every Sunday, and that she had dreams bigger than her current circumstances suggested were possible. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. You know what's funny? Maya said one Tuesday night in late October, restocking the chip display while Daniel nursed his coffee. "I've been working here almost a year, and you're the only customer who actually talks to me like a person." "What do you mean?" "Most people, they come in here and they see." She gestured around the gas station. "This. They see someone who must not have had better options. They're not mean or anything, just distant, like I'm part of the scenery." Daniel felt a pang of guilt. How many service workers had he dismissed without a thought over the years? How many people had he overlooked simply because their jobs seemed ordinary? "Their loss," he said simply. "You're the smartest person I've met in a long time." Maya laughed, but her cheeks flushed. "You don't know that many people, do you?" If only she knew. Daniel interacted with some of the most brilliant minds in technology, daily Nobel laureates, industry pioneers, visionary entrepreneurs. But none of them had Maya's combination of intelligence, kindness, and quiet strength. "I know enough," he said as Halloween approached. Maya mentioned she'd been studying extra hard for an upcoming exam. "If I nail this one, I'll have a real shot at getting into the accelerated program next fall." "You'll nail it," Daniel said with confidence. "And when you do, drinks are on me to celebrate." "Careful," Maya teased. "I might hold you to that." "I hope you do." That night, as Daniel drove home, he realized he was in trouble. He'd started this routine as an escape from his high-pressure world, a place where he could be anonymous and normal. But Maya wasn't just an escape anymore. She was becoming the best part of his life. Meanwhile, Maya found herself thinking about Daniel long after her shift ended. There was something different about him, the way he listened, really listened, when she talked. The thoughtful questions he asked, the way he made her feel like her dreams mattered, even when they seemed impossibly far away. She was falling for a man who bought milk at 2 a.m. and worked in tech. She had no idea she was falling for someone whose company had just been featured on the cover of Fortune magazine, or that his net worth could fund her education 1,000 times over. And Daniel was falling for a woman who saw potential in sick animals and stayed up all night to chase her dreams. He had no idea that his growing feelings were about to collide with a secret that could destroy everything they were building. Neither of them realized they were standing on the edge of a revelation that would test whether what they'd found together was strong enough to survive the truth. Maya practically bounced on her feet as Daniel walked through the quick-stop doors that Tuesday night. She'd been waiting to share her news for hours. "I passed," she announced before he even reached the counter. "The exam, I got the highest score in my class." Daniel's face lit up with genuine pride. "Maya, that's incredible. I told you you'd nail it." "You did." Her smile was radiant. "And you promised me drinks to celebrate, remember?" "Absolutely. When's your next night off?" "Friday. There's this little place downtown called Rosita's. Nothing fancy, but they make the best margaritas in Phoenix." Daniel hesitated. Downtown Phoenix, where people might recognize him, where tech journalists sometimes hung out, where his carefully constructed anonymity could crumble in an instant. But looking at Maya's excited face, he couldn't bring himself to say no. "Friday it is," he said. "Rosita's at 8? "Perfect." Maya handed him his usual milk and coffee. "I can't believe I'm actually going to make it into the accelerated program. 3 years instead of 4, and I'll be done with my prerequisites." As they talked about her plans, Daniel found himself doing mental calculations. Maya had mentioned the program cost $85,000 total. He'd made more than that in passive investment income just that afternoon. The thought made him sick, not because of the money, but because of the growing chasm between their realities. Friday night arrived with unseasonable warmth for November in Phoenix. Maya had borrowed a dress from her coworker, a simple blue sundress that made her eyes sparkle. She felt nervous in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Daniel arrived at Rosita's early, choosing a corner table in the dimly lit cantina. He'd driven the Honda again, dressed in his usual jeans and button-down shirt. Just regular Daniel, celebrating with Maya. But the universe had other plans. 20 minutes into their celebration, as Maya was telling a funny story about a particularly dramatic cat at the veterinary clinic, Daniel's blood ran cold. Walking through the restaurant's entrance were Jake Morrison and Lisa Chun, two tech journalists he knew well from industry events. The Data Vault launch party next week is going to be insane, Jake was saying loudly as they passed near their table. Daniel Park really knows how to make a statement. Did you see the Forbes interview? Guy's worth like $8 billion now. Daniel felt Maya's gaze shift to the men, then back to him, something changing in her expression. I'll be right back, he mumbled, heading toward the restroom before she could respond. In the bathroom, Daniel splashed cold water on his face. Maybe Maya hadn't heard. Maybe she didn't make the connection. Maybe his phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Reminder: Forbes photographer coming to the office Monday for follow-up shots. Also, TechCrunch wants to schedule another interview about the AI breakthrough. When Daniel returned to the table, Maya was staring at her phone, her face pale. Everything okay? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Maya slowly turned her phone toward him. On the screen was a Forbes article. Tech billionaire Daniel Park, the man revolutionizing data security. Below the headline was a professional photo of Daniel in an expensive suit, standing in front of the Data Vault logo. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Daniel Park, Maya said quietly, CEO of Data Vault Technologies. Net worth $8.2 billion. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with confusion and something that might have been betrayal. That Daniel Park? Daniel's throat felt like sandpaper. Maya, I can explain. Explain what? Her voice was still quiet, but there was an edge to it now. Explain why you've been lying to me for 2 months? Explain why you let me tell you about struggling to pay for school while you're worth billions? I never lied to you. You told me you worked in tech. You said you did software development. Maya's voice cracked. You let me worry about $3 coffees while you probably spend more on lunch than I make in a week. Other diners were starting to notice their conversation. Daniel reached across the table, but Maya pulled her hands away. I wanted to tell you, Daniel said desperately, but I knew this would happen. I knew you'd look at me differently. Differently? Maya stood up abruptly. Daniel, you bought me a $3 coffee, and I thought it was generous. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? Maya, please. All those conversations about my dreams, my struggles, my mother's medical bills. She shook her head. You must have thought I was pathetic. Poor little gas station girl with her cute little problems that you could solve with pocket change. That's not true. That's never what I thought. But Maya was already grabbing her purse. I need to go. Maya, wait. She turned back at the door, tears shining in her eyes. You know what the worst part is? I was falling in love with you. With Daniel, who bought milk at 2 a.m. and actually listened when I talked. But that person doesn't exist, does he? And then she was gone, leaving Daniel alone at a table set for 2, with the weight of his deception crashing down around him. Outside, Maya sat in her beat-up Toyota, hands shaking as she tried to process what had just happened. The man she'd been falling for, the man who'd made her feel seen and valued, was one of the most powerful people in the tech industry. Every conversation they'd had now felt different. tainted by the imbalance she hadn't known existed. Had he been entertained by her struggles? Amused by her dreams that seemed so big to her but so small compared to his world? As she drove home, through the Phoenix night, Maya made a decision. Tomorrow she'd find a different gas station to work at. She couldn't face seeing him again, couldn't bear the pity she was sure she'd see in his eyes now that the truth was out. What Maya didn't know was that Daniel was sitting in his car in the Rosita's parking lot, realizing he'd just lost the most real thing in his life. And for the first time since building his empire, all his money felt completely worthless. Maya kept her promise to herself and found a new job at a 24-hour diner across town. The pay was slightly better, but she missed the quiet solitude of the gas station. More than that, she missed Tuesday nights. She missed having someone to share her small victories with, someone who made her feel like her dreams mattered. But every time she thought about Daniel, the humiliation returned fresh and sharp. How many times had she worried about money in front of him? How many times had she mentioned her mother's medical bills while sitting across from someone who could have paid them without blinking? Maya threw herself into her studies with renewed intensity. If she was going to make something of herself, she'd do it on her own terms, without anyone's help, especially not his. Meanwhile, Daniel was discovering that having unlimited resources meant nothing when the person you cared about most wouldn't take your calls. The Tuesday after their disastrous dinner, he'd driven to Quick Stop out of habit, only to find Maya's replacement, a college kid named Tyler, who showed no interest in conversation beyond the transaction. Daniel bought his milk and left, feeling more alone than he had in years. He'd tried calling Maya twice. Both calls went straight to voicemail. He'd even drafted a dozen text messages, but nothing seemed adequate to bridge the chasm his deception had created. "You're distracted," his business partner and best friend Marcus Kim observed during a board meeting 3 weeks later. "The data vault launches in 4 days, and you're acting like someone stole your laptop." Daniel stared out the conference room window at the Phoenix skyline. "I screwed up, Marcus. Really screwed up." That evening, Marcus cornered Daniel in his office. "Okay, what's going on? And don't give me some corporate speak about market pressures." So Daniel told him everything. About the gas station, about Maya, about the double life he'd been living, and how it had all fallen apart. Marcus listened without interruption, then leaned back in his chair. "Man, you really did screw up. Thanks for the pep talk." "I'm not done." Marcus studied his friend. "The question is, what are you going to do about it? What can I do? She made it clear she doesn't want to see me. Did she say that? Or did she say she couldn't trust you because you lied?" Daniel considered this. She said the person she was falling for didn't exist. But he does exist. The guy who listened to her talk about veterinary school, who cared about her dreams, who looked forward to buying milk at 2 a.m. just to see her smile. That's you. The real you. Marcus leaned forward. "You just need to prove that to her." "How?" "Figure it out. You built a billion-dollar company from nothing. Surely you can figure out how to win back one gas station worker." "She's not just a gas station worker," Daniel said quietly. "Exactly. So stop treating this like a business problem and start treating it like what it is, the most important thing in your life." Meanwhile, Maya was having her own revelations. Her mother, Alina, had noticed the change in her daughter immediately. "Mia, you've been moping around for weeks," Alina said one evening as Maya studied at their kitchen table. "What happened to that smile you used to get on Tuesday nights?" Maya had told her mother about Daniel, the regular customer who'd become a friend, maybe something more. She hadn't mentioned the revelation about his identity. "It didn't work out, Mama." "Did he hurt you?" Maya looked up from her textbook. "Not the way you mean." Elena sat down across from her daughter. Maya had inherited her mother's intuition along with her dark eyes. "Tell me." So Maya did. She told her mother about falling for someone she thought understood her world, only to discover he lived in a completely different universe. About feeling foolish and naive and small. Elena listened patiently, then asked, "Did he treat you badly? Was he cruel?" "No, but did he make fun of your dreams? Or your struggles?" "No, he was actually really supportive, but Mama, you don't understand. I understand that you're punishing a man for having money instead of asking whether he's a good person." Elena's voice was gentle but firm. "Your father worked construction, and I worked in a hotel kitchen when we met. Different worlds, Mia, but what mattered was how we treated each other. It's not the same thing, isn't it?" Elena reached across the table to touch her daughter's hand. "You said he listened to you. He encouraged your dreams. He made you happy. Those things don't change because he has money." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "But he lied to me. Or maybe he was protecting something precious, the chance to be loved for who he is, not what he has." Elena squeezed her daughter's hand. "Maybe he was just as scared as you are right now." That night, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mother's words echoing in her mind. She thought about all those Tuesday nights, about the way Daniel's eyes lit up when she talked about her veterinary dreams, about how genuinely interested he'd been in her life. Had she been so focused on the deception that she'd forgotten everything real that had passed between them? Across town, Daniel was making a decision that would either win Maya back or prove that he'd lost her forever. But first, he had to do something he'd never done before: put his heart on the line without knowing. If his wealth could fix the consequences. The data vault launch was in 3 days. After that, Daniel Park would either reclaim his anonymity long enough to fight for the woman he loved, or he'd accept that some mistakes were too big for even a billionaire to fix. Neither of them knew that fate was about to force their hands. In a way neither could have anticipated. The Data Vault launch party was everything the tech world expected: sleek, sophisticated, and buzzing with industry giants. Daniel stood on the rooftop terrace of the Phoenix Marriott, accepting congratulations from investors and journalists. But his mind was elsewhere. Tomorrow, he'd decided, he would go to Maya. He'd find a way to prove that the man she'd fallen for at the gas station was real, money or no money. He'd figure out how to rebuild the trust he'd broken. But tonight, surrounded by hundreds of people who knew his net worth before they knew his name, Daniel felt more isolated than ever. Meanwhile, across town, Maya was ending her shift at the diner when her phone rang. It was her mother, and Elena's voice was tight with panic. "Mia, I'm at the hospital. I started having chest pains and I'm on my way," Maya said, already grabbing her keys. At Phoenix General Hospital, Maya paced the emergency room waiting area while doctors ran tests on her mother. Elena had been doing so well with her recovery, but the stress of recent treatments had apparently triggered some heart complications. "Maya Rodriguez?" A doctor approached her around midnight. "Your mother is stable, but we need to keep her for observation. The good news is this appears to be a reaction to her medication, not her heart itself. We'll need to adjust her treatment plan." Relief flooded through Maya, followed immediately by a familiar worry: more medical bills, more adjustments to treatment. Plans she could barely afford in the first place. She was filling out insurance paperwork when exhaustion finally caught up with her. Maya's hands shook as she tried to calculate copays and deductibles, the numbers blurring through her tired tears. "Excuse me, miss," a young nurse approached. "I'm sorry to bother you, but there's been an unusual development with your mother's account." Maya's stomach dropped. "What kind of development?" "Well, it appears someone has already covered all of your mother's medical expenses, past, present, and future treatments. The entire cancer treatment plan, tonight's emergency room visit, everything. It's all been paid in full." Maya stared at the nurse. "That's impossible. There must be some mistake." "No mistake. A substantial donation was made to the hospital earlier tonight, specifically designated for Elena Rodriguez's care. There's also a note, The nurse handed Maya a sealed envelope. Inside, in handwriting she recognized, were just a few lines. Maya, your mother raised an incredible woman who taught me what it means to care about others. She deserves every chance to be healthy and proud of her daughter. This isn't about us. It's about what's right. Always, Daniel. P.S. The donation is anonymous to the hospital. Only you, me, and the billing department know the source. Maya sank into a waiting room chair, the note trembling in her hands. He'd somehow found out about her mother's emergency and taken care of everything without being asked, without expecting anything in return. Just like the man who used to give her $5 tips, he thought she didn't notice. The next morning, Maya stood outside Quick Stop Gas for the first time in a month. Her replacement, Tyler, was just finishing the night shift. "Oh, hey, you're Maya, right?" Tyler said as he gathered his things. "That guy Daniel asked me to give you this, if you ever came by." He handed her another envelope, this one thick and official looking. Inside was a check made out to the Phoenix Veterinary Education Foundation for $100,000, along with another note. This donation is being made in honor of Maya Rodriguez, a pre-veterinary student whose dedication to helping animals and caring for her family represents the best of what the veterinary profession stands for. Please use these funds to establish a scholarship for students who demonstrate both academic excellence and financial need. There was more. "Maya, I know you won't take help directly, and I understand why. But other students shouldn't have to choose between their dreams and taking care of their families. If you're angry about this too, then I guess we're even. But at least some good will come from my mistake." Maya was still staring at the check when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "I wasn't sure you'd come." She turned to find Daniel standing by the gas pumps, not in his usual jeans and hoodie, but in an expensive suit with his hair perfectly styled. He looked every inch the billionaire CEO, except for his eyes, which held the same nervous uncertainty she remembered from their first real conversation. "You didn't have to do this," Maya said, holding up the check. "Yes, I did." Daniel stepped closer. "Not because of the money, because it's right. Your mom deserves the best care possible, and students like you deserve a chance to chase their dreams without drowning in debt." "Daniel, I know you think the person you fell for doesn't exist," he interrupted. "But he does. He's standing right here, still buying milk at 2 a.m. because it reminds him of the best part of his day. Still thinking about a woman who sees potential in sick animals and studies until 3 a.m. to make something better of herself." Maya felt tears threatening again. "I was scared," she admitted. "When I found out who you really were, I felt so small. Like everything between us had been some kind of charity case." "Maya, look at me." Daniel's voice was gentle but firm. "That first night when you offered me coffee and helped me pick up my scattered wallet, that wasn't charity. That was kindness. When you told me about your dreams of becoming a veterinarian, that wasn't small talk. That was you sharing something important with someone you trusted." He pulled something from his pocket, a crumpled receipt from their first coffee together. "I kept this because it reminded me of the moment I realized I was falling for someone extraordinary. Not because of what you did or didn't have, but because of who you are." Daniel's voice cracked slightly. "The money doesn't change that. It never changed that." Maya stared at the receipt, remembering that night. How genuine their connection had felt. How Daniel had really listened when she talked about her dreams. "I missed you," she whispered. "I missed you too. Every Tuesday, every day, every moment since you walked out of that restaurant." Maya looked up at him, really looked at him. Underneath the expensive suit and the billion-dollar empire, she could still see the tired man who'd dropped his wallet, and smiled when she called him Milk Guy. "If we do this," she said slowly, "really do this, no more secrets. No more hiding who you are or feeling ashamed of who I am. We figure it out together." Daniel's face broke into the first genuine smile she'd seen from him since the revelation. Together. I like the sound of that. Good, Maya said, stepping closer. Because I have some conditions. Name them. First, you're not paying for my education. I'm earning that scholarship you just funded, and I'm going to make sure every dollar goes to students who need it. Done. Second, you're going to help me figure out how to use your resources, our resources, to make a real difference. Animal shelters, veterinary clinics in underserved areas, whatever we can do to help. Daniel's heart swelled. She'd said, our resources. She was thinking in terms of partnership, not charity. I love that idea. And third, Maya said, reaching up to touch his face, next Tuesday night, you're coming to my place for dinner. I'm cooking. You're bringing milk from a regular grocery store. And we're going to figure out how to be us, whoever that turns out to be. It's a date, Daniel said, leaning down to kiss her dot as they stood there in the parking lot of Quick Stop Gas. Surrounded by the ordinary chaos of Phoenix morning traffic, Maya realized that her mother had been right. What mattered wasn't where they'd come from or what they had. It was how they chose to treat each other and the world around them. 6 months later, the Elena Rodriguez Memorial Animal Clinic opened its doors in downtown Phoenix, funded by the Elena Rodriguez Memorial Animal Clinic Park Foundation and staffed by some of the city's most dedicated veterinarians. Maya, now in her accelerated pre-vet program, volunteered there every weekend and every Tuesday night. Daniel still showed up at Maya's apartment with a gallon of milk, because some traditions were worth keeping, no matter how much your life changed. Sometimes love finds you at 2 a.m. in a gas station. Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what actually matters. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it gives you a second chance to build something beautiful together. The best stories, Maya and Daniel discovered, aren't about where you start. They're about who you choose to become along the way. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload. From us